Premier Doug Ford putting the wheels in motion today as he asked the Lieutenant Governor to dissolve the legislature, triggering a provincial election campaign 15 months ahead of schedule. The move is raising plenty of questions about Ford's rationale for the snap election. Our senior reporter covering Queen's Park, Mike Crawley, has this story.
It's the ritual performed by every Ontario premier who's ever called an election. The walk to the Lieutenant Governor. Doug Ford did not have to trigger this election. His current mandate lasts until June next year. But now he's seeking a fresh mandate, and that is in the hands of the voters.
They're going to have a choice. Do they want a leader that's going to protect jobs, protect the people's livelihoods, protect businesses, protect communities? That's what people are going to have to decide.
Ford insists he's calling this election in response to U.S. President Donald Trump's threat of tariffs.
We do have a strong economic action plan, which we'll be rolling out over the period of the next 28 days, but it's all about protecting the people of Ontario.
But the timing of this election call is politically advantageous to Ford and his PCs in plenty of ways.
Any time you are leading in the polls is a good time to call an election. Probably the biggest advantage to Doug Ford calling an election now is that we haven't seen much from the opposition in terms of being able to really define themselves.
Case in point, neither Marit Stiles of the NDP nor Bonnie Crombie of the Liberals held a news conference today, although Stiles did interviews with some media outlets.
Hi. Mr. Ford doesn't need to call this election for another almost 2 years, and it's going to cost Ontarians almost $200 million to hold an early election. So nobody wants this, but he sees this as an opportunity.
Ontario's election campaign will run at the same time as the federal Liberal leadership race, something that will bleed resources and staff away from the provincial Liberal Party.
There are only so many people in the province of Ontario who know how to run an election campaign, who know how to fundraise for a campaign.
The campaign will officially begin tomorrow when the party leaders start crisscrossing the province. Ford will be in Windsor, a symbolic choice at the Canada-US border. Election Day will be February 27th. That's just 4 weeks from Thursday. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
With the election campaign officially set to start tomorrow, youth advocates made their election priorities heard at Queen's Park today.
While the cost of living is rising, youth are being crushed by rising rents. High food prices and unreliable wages, while job availability is becoming more and more limited. 75% of youth in Ontario are concerned about the high prices of living, while 17% of students are at high risk of losing a roof above their heads.
As some other key issues they highlighted include climate action, the rise in hate crimes across Ontario, youth mental health, and the need for further investment in post-secondary education. The Ford government is also in the news for another reason today. It appears the $200 rebate checks the province recently sent out to Ontario taxpayers is not clearing for some. Megan Fitzpatrick looks into that.
Some Ontarians are hitting a roadblock when it comes to cashing their checks from Premier Doug Ford's government. They're bouncing. The taxpayer rebate checks, as the government is calling them, have been on their way for a few days now. But for some Ontarians, when they've tried depositing the checks, they're not clearing. One Toronto woman went public with her story, warning her neighbors in a Facebook group that her check hadn't cleared. She had uploaded her check through her bank's mobile banking app, and she thought everything was fine. When she checked her account 2 days later, the money wasn't there. Her account was in overdraft, and she had been charged an $8 fee for the invalid check.
I've been unemployed for a year and a half, so to say I was upset is an understatement. It's just the situation I'm in. That was extremely disheartening to see that I am in overdraft.
She promptly called her bank, Simply Financial, who advised her to call the Ministry of Finance, which she did. They took her information and said they'd get back to her. When CBC contacted the Ministry of Finance, they said the problems with the checks could be traced to the Royal Bank of Canada. RBC is one of several financial institutions that the government used to help issue the checks. RBC told CBC News that an estimated 150 to 200 checks were flagged as problematic. The glitch happened during the authentication process, and some checks were returned instead of being processed. We've resolved the matter and have ensured those impacted have received their money and are credited for any fees associated with the transaction. We sincerely apologize for the inconvenience it's caused. Now, some Ontarians are still waiting for their checks, which the government says are to help people make ends meet. Newton was counting on using her $200 check to take her pet to the vet.
I had to cancel my cat's vet visit. That $200 was to take my old, beautiful cat to the vet. So that's kind of what it sums it up to.
Today, the $200 did show up in Newton's bank account, plus a refund for that $8 fee she was charged. She says this whole experience has been a frustrating one. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police have identified the city's first homicide victim of the year, 2 days after he was murdered, as the search continues for those responsible. Tyreek Reed reports.
Toronto police releasing this photo of 27-year-old Daryl Savon, identifying him as the victim of the city's first homicide of the year. As for who may be responsible, police are still searching.
We do believe there are 3 suspects involved. We're appealing to the public for assistance. If you were in the area at the time of the investigation or have any information that might help us, please reach out to us.
Police say they were called to this area at Madison Avenue and Bloor Street West just after midnight on Sunday. That's where they found Savon suffering from severe injuries. He was taken to a hospital where he later died.
Somebody died, and whatever happened between this party and our victim resulted in his death. That's somebody's kid, right? So do the right thing, get a hold of a lawyer, and get a hold of us.
Meanwhile, those in the neighborhood are still struggling to come to terms with the violent incident.
Well, it's very shocking. This neighborhood is usually calm, next to the university, next to Bloor, so it's shocking. Well, I have to be careful, I guess. I have to be cautious when walking around at night or like with my headphones yeah.
Officers have not confirmed how the victim died and have yet to release any suspect information. Tyreek Reed, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto's Waterfront is about to get a big funding boost to expedite development in the area. Mayor Chow, along with representatives from all 3 levels of government, announcing today they are spending nearly $1 billion to create 14,000 new homes. Clara Pasica has the details.
Here at the Waterfront Innovation Center right next to Sugar Beach, all 3 levels of government gathered today for a funding announcement. Some $975 million, equal parts coming from all 3 levels of government, that will be used for infrastructure to unlock housing in the area. I spoke with one MP, Julie DeBruzen, who said getting all 3 levels of government to come together like this is a feat in of itself.
It's a really exciting day for our community because we've seen all of these milestones being reached, and the federal government, the province and the city have been working together. We talk so much about divisive politics. This is an example of how when we work together, we can actually do things that serve the entire community. And we've been seeing it time and time again. I'm really excited to see everybody come down to the parks that we're going to see opening up this summer. And there's going to be a lot of housing being built. That is a central piece for our city.
So where are we talking about exactly? Well, we'll be starting around Queen's Quay and Parliament, and then the development will continue onto a brand new island. The goal is 14,000 new homes, with people able to start occupying the homes as early as 2031. Now, this area is an area that is undergoing revitalization that has been pretty significant. The mayor spoke about that in the press conference.
There's going to be beautiful parks starting this summer. People can walk their dogs, maybe an off-leash park area somewhere in among there. Lovers can watch the sunset while they walk along the waterfront. And people can rent canoes, kids can play. I can even almost hear the laughter coming this summer.
This project is expected to create some 100,000 new jobs for skilled workers. Now, how the governments will ensure that there are enough skilled workers to complete this task on time, that's still to be seen. Clara Pasica, CBC News, Toronto.
Mississauga announcing today it's received new funding from the federal government to revitalize transit. The city is also planning to reduce developer fees for builders in an attempt to get more homes built.
This is making sure families are going to come to Mississauga. It's also making sure that the investors, the few that are still out there, we're going to pull them all into Mississauga. They're become Mississauga people.
The federal government is investing $112 million over the next 10 years through the Canada Public Transit Fund to upgrade MyWay's transit infrastructure, along with another $10.9 million to support deployment of hydrogen fuel cell buses in Mississauga. The provincial government has hired an engineering firm in its push to scrap bike lanes on 3 of Toronto's major streets. That drew reaction from City Hall today.
Well, Doug Ford is neglecting healthcare, neglecting education, neglecting our Ontario's most vulnerable, blowing $1 billion on getting booze into corner stores early, and seemingly running for potentially the governor of Canada one day. He's meddling into how we design our streets in the city of Toronto.
Last fall, Ontario passed a law requiring provincial approval for cities to replace traffic lanes with bike lanes. It also allows the province to tear up existing bike lanes, which it plans to do along the Yonge, University and Bloor corridors. Matt Lowe introduced a motion today to move Toronto towards being a charter city. That would give it more independence from the province and more control over its own affairs. The countdown to the beautiful game coming to our city is now 500 days away. The FIFA World Cup is set to kick off in June 2026. And with the excitement building, our Dale Manukduk is at the Regent Park Community Centre tonight for a very special event. Dale, I'm obviously not the only one counting down.
No, not the only one. A lot of people here counting down as well. They are just tearing down the event right now. But about 30 minutes ago, Kel, there was nothing but screeching sneakers on these hardwood floors in the Regent Park Community Center gymnasium. About 30 kids were here. They were running drills. They were playing 8-on-8. And then they got these beautiful Toronto FIFA World Cup scarves. I want to get my hands on one of those. And they got to do all of that, Kelda, with Dwayne De Rosario, Canadian soccer legend, Scarborough, born and raised, went on to play 81 international matches for the men's squad, netting 22 goals. Just an incredible career. And he says it's so important to engage kids in underserved communities to show them that they can do it too.
I'm a product of inner city community. I'm a product of Metro housing. I'm a product of first generation Canadian. So where all the odds are against you. And it was sport that created a pathway for me to see the world, to help provide for my family. So I'm here in Regent Park Community Center, a community that I know all too well. As we see a lot of the new developments that's happening here, opening these kids' eyes to a bigger opportunities. And now we see that we can see the same opportunities going even bigger through sport and in particular through soccer.
And you see Dwayne De Rosario still here on site, and you can see that beautiful Toronto World Cup FIFA scarf that I'm going to get my hands on. Now, we know that the tournament is going to be hosted in Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. 7 games in BC and 6 games here in Toronto, all said and done, Kelda. About a $3.8 billion benefit to the country. That's an estimate from FIFA. I'll give you some more local projections. City staff last year estimated about a $390 million economic boost to Toronto and about $450 million for the province. But it's all costing a pretty penny, $380 million to host these games in Toronto. That's about 10 times more than the original estimate of between 30 and 45 million. And in fact, Kelda, the project to expand the capacity at BMO Field is costing $37 million alone, and that work is already underway. Construction is happening on scene at BMO Field. They're adding 18,000 seats to bring the capacity to almost 46,000. That venue will host 5 opening round matches and 1 round of 32 knockout match. We did catch up with the mayor to see how she's marking this 500 days out milestone.
Ooh, we are ready. 500 days. Yeah, we are ready. The fans are ready. The soccer leagues in Toronto are ready. Everywhere I go, people said, whoa, okay, World Cup is coming. So we're ready. 500 days.
Who knew that Olivia Chow, the mayor, was a woo girl, Kelda, but everyone is very excited. Now, 2 more dates to keep your eyes on, the 1-year out mark, and then the day that the draw comes out, and then we find out which nations will be coming to the city. This is such a culturally diverse city, and whoever does come here, there'll be some programming that caters to some of those communities. We'll send it back to you.
Yeah, love the mayor's enthusiasm. Thanks for this, Dale. Our Dale Manekduk reporting from Regent Park Community Center tonight. Welcome back. A business in Vaughan is speaking out after repeated break-ins. Thieves armed with sledgehammers smashed through windows with the goal of stealing power tools 3 times in recent months. As Ali Chiasson reports, the police are now working on taking down the crime ring they say is responsible.
This surveillance footage shows you how far suspects will go to score their loot. Here, it's power tools and copper. At Metalworks HVAC in Vaughan, it hasn't happened just once.
The first one was August 31st. The second one was October 23rd, just 6 weeks after. And now this one, January 23rd.
They'll use sledgehammers to smash their way in, and they'll even drive through the loading docks. It's happened 3 times in 5 months.
We've also blocked off the entrance to these overhead doors because they are quite expensive to continue replacing. So this last one, they decided to come through smashing the front door because they no longer had the access through the side.
Operations manager Raquel Fernandez says the company has had tens of thousands in tools and copper stolen. On top of that, they've spent $100,000 on additional security systems and retractable bollards to keep the thieves' vehicles out of their loading bay. Fernandez says they're not alone and that this type of retail theft is rampant.
It's happening industry-wide. It's happening construction industry-wide. So whether it's electrical suppliers, HVAC suppliers, tool supplies, we're all feeling it.
So far, York Regional Police have arrested the alleged driver in the Metalworks heists and say this is the work of organized crime.
It's like a little flow chart of hierarchy. So we have like the middle, the very bottom, that's the guy that will go in, or these groups of guys that will go in and commit the thefts, then moves on to that fence or this person that is now the operator that may run this legitimate looking business but is selling illegal goods.
They're finding stolen tools being resold online or in fraudulent storefronts. There's an active investigation underway to take down the crime ring at the top, and it's multi-jurisdictional.
And our job is we like to obviously cut it off at the head, if you like.
While that happens, the folks at Metalworks hope they've replaced their last window and ask the public.
If you find tools being sold in the black market or somebody approaches you, it's affecting businesses like us. And I would suggest reporting it to the police and trying to put an end to this because this is going to increase everything for everybody.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Vaughan.
A judge sentenced 2 more teens today for the violent swarming death of a Toronto homeless man in December 2022. Justice David Rose handed a 24-month probation sentence to a 16-year-old who pled guilty to manslaughter in the death of Kenneth Lee, and that's in addition to the 15 months she has already served. She's required to undergo an intensive supervision program that includes counseling and mental health treatment. Another 15-year-old who pled guilty to assault causing bodily harm and assault with a weapon will serve 12 months probation. 4 girls who pleaded not guilty are going to trial on charges of second-degree murder. The public inquiry looking into foreign election meddling has submitted its final report. The commissioner says she's found no evidence of parliamentarians plotting with hostile states against Canada's interests, but she did criticize the government for being slow to respond to the increase in foreign interference.
The means used to communicate information to certain decision makers, including elected officials, proved imperfect. Sometimes, very much so, since certain documents never got to where they were supposed to go, and there seems to be no good reason why. But above all, I found that the government has been overall a poor communicator when it comes to foreign interference.
Now, she says information manipulation, foreign or not, poses the single biggest risk to our democracy. The report makes 51 recommendations, including improving intelligence sharing and updating the Canada Elections Act. The feds say it will carefully review the findings. All right, Colette is here with your long-range forecast. And Colette, for those who like snow, I mean, it's back.
Yeah, it is back. That's right. And with this accumulating snow, it does make it a little bit tricky on our roadways. Thus, the winter weather travel advisory that is in place for some slick conditions. At times, the visibility a little bit reduced as well. And it's quite a large area that it covers, even though the system in Alberta Clipper, because it moves at a fast pace moving through. So it's not here for long, but enough that not only will it put some, as we've been seeing, accumulating snow down, but also on the backside, once it's actually exited, we get those winds kicking up. And so we have a snow squall watch for quite a large area as well in the lee of Lake Huron and around Georgian Bay there. So just showing you kind of how it continues to play out as we move through the overnight hours, largely gone as we get towards midnight there, or just after midnight. But I do want to show you that this little band, again, due to the winds and as the winds shift direction, this band coming through tomorrow morning. So back into the GTA, early morning commuters, even Hamilton, Oakville, Mississauga, Burlington, stretching all the way over towards, say, Pickering, you may see this burst of flurry activity and have that reduced visibility again, even though the main system will be long gone. Other than that, it'll be some light flurries and then even breaking up that cloud deck a little bit so that we could get some sun mixing in with the cloud as the day wears on, other than in these highly localized areas where you see the bands of lake effect, where those will continue. So in terms of the accumulation, the higher amounts where you get the impact or the enhancement from the lakes, and that's where we'll see 10 to perhaps 15 centimeters, and also into eastern Ontario, where the amounts could be getting closer to 15 to 20 centimeters from Kingston up towards the nation's capital. Most of the GTA, it's that 5 to 10 centimeters, and the 10 is going to be more towards Oshawa, Whitby, through that region as you're traveling a little bit further east. The winds, breezy with this one too. So here we go again, perhaps not quite as strong as yesterday, but there will be breezy conditions, and they really have an impact on our temperature. So actually finding the temperature rising overnight through Toronto. It's actually nearly steady for Windsor, but then through the day tomorrow, the temperature will begin dropping off and it will get colder as the day wears on. So we'll get some melting of the snow and then a refreeze of some of that. So watch out for some icy conditions. That potential will be there later tomorrow.
All right, yeah, got to be careful on the roads tomorrow, right? But those temperatures, I mean,
Yes, I mean above freezing for a few days,
for a few days, right? I'll take it. Thanks so much, Colette. And that's all the time we have tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.